You want me to do it? City Council regular meeting dated Monday, July 7th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item 3 on the agenda is a roll call. Could I have roll call taken, please?
Ball,
Present.
Jensen,
Present.
Ogenkamp,
Present.
Maroney,
Present.
Scott.
Thank you. Before going any further, I'd like to make a brief introduction of our new city administrator. Allie Pulfus has joined us. She started last week and has been working with the staff. So welcome, Allie, aboard. Happy to have you here and look forward to working with you. So
Happy to be here.
excellent. You're welcome. All right, moving on to item 4, open forum. Is there anybody here that wishes to address the city council in open forum? Yes. Please state your name and your address. And you have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, I'll be as quick as I can. Bill Toft, Green Scene Drive, Breezy Point. I'm here representing the Breezy Point Alliance. First of all, Jerry, I want to thank you for filling in so ably over the last several months. You did an awesome job. Thank you. I'm not here to speak about the pictures I emailed you folks today concerning the breaking of ordinances down at the disc golf course. I'm here to talk about the management of our tax dollars. And I have 3 questions. I hope I'm able to ask all 3 questions, and I'd love to get answers tonight from any of you. The first one, about 10 months ago, a representative from Baker Tilly was here giving their presentation before, in my opinion, the vote was had to be made that night. It shouldn't have been, but it was. And Mr. Scott asked a very important question. He said, what is the coupon of these bonds that are going to be issued? If you recall, the representative gave a dissertation that would make a used car salesman blush. She didn't give us a number. A few weeks after that, they printed out what they said the interest rates the coupons were going to be. I'm sure you've probably seen these sheets. There were 2 pieces of it, obviously, 1.4 million and over 3 million. And they both had the same exact coupon rates for all the different variations that they have. I have copies of this if you want to see this, which I will hand out if you want. Turns out that it was voted upon and the bonds were issued, and today I've noticed there was a Breezy Point bond that has a 5% coupon. The average coupon of these sheets was about 3.5%. Now, a 10-year AA rated Minnesota piece of paper, and I might add treasuries, government treasuries are AA rated, should yield about 3.5% at the time, and rates have not changed significantly over the time period that we were talking here. They come out with a 5% coupon. That's costed us $1 million over the 10-year life of that bond, if that's true, especially for the larger piece. Tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars if it's just the smaller piece. And I can't find any information on the larger piece. How'd this happen? That's question number 1. The question 2 is we have $1 million, according to the agenda paperwork tonight, there's $1 million sitting in the bank. I didn't see an interest rate of what it was earning. Now, maybe that's just an oversight. There's also 1.2 million in CDs yielding, on average, about 1%. Several of them yield under 1%. In 2023, I gave Mr. Chansky a symbol for Fidelity Money Market Fund, and Fidelity manages $1 trillion plus that yield 5%. No risk, 5%. Well, obviously, you don't want to listen to taxpayers because I didn't see it listed on the agenda sheet. But that decision of having that kind of money earning basically nothing, it's cost the city tens of thousands of dollars of income. And lastly, are we as taxpayers ever going to find out what all these secret meetings are generating as far as what our good folks on Bushman are getting paid for their property? I think when you have all this non-transparent meetings, it creates rumors and people talk, especially when a former administrator is involved. In the financial business, that's called inside information. Now, I don't want to accuse anybody of anything. Maybe there's good explanations for all of this, and I would look forward to hearing what they might be. But it's either just ignorance or incompetence, and I'd like some answers. Thank you. answers.
There will be no comment back to your comments. No, thank you for your information that you provided. Anybody else that wishes to address the council in open forum? Again, I'll ask, anybody else that wishes to address the council in open forum?
Put together a little memo,
Hearing none, open forum is closed.
concerns that
Moving on to item 5,
the council can answer them at the next meeting.
public hearing, Edgewater Circle improvement. 5A, this is a public hearing on the Edgewater Circle road improvement. And I am going to, as we proceed, have the staff give us a brief overview. And then we will move forward with the public hearing and I'll cover those pieces. So, Jerry, please.
Okay, the timing of this improvement to street rehabilitation has been prompted by Pelican Township. Pelican Township is proposing to improve Edgewater Circle. A portion of Edgewater Drive or Circle is located in the city of Breezy, approximately 1/4 or 25%, approximately 390 some odd feet. That belongs to the city of Breezy Point. The township has approached the city about participating in the improvement, and they are proposing to do that project this summer. The city's inventory of street inventory, it identifies Edgewater Road as a rating of 4, which means that it's in need of a full depth reclamation, which is what is being proposed by Pelican Township. Economies of scale, having a consistent roadway throughout, and the road rating of 4 indicated need for the improvement project. We do not have any record of when Edgewater was last rehabilitated, but we estimated that it was paved in approximately 1978 at the time that annexation happened and the sewer was extended to service the Edgewater condominiums. That said, the city has options. One of the options would be to order the improvement and assess based on the policy that we have. Order the improvement and assess similar to Osawatomie, which was a 50% assessment. Order the improvement and assess based on a professional appraisal of benefit. One option is to decline the improvement and leave it as is. I think it's imperative that we look at this. We're looking at a capital improvement program that's looking at many other roads. This might be the first one that you attack and try to get rehabbed. With that, I'll turn it over to any questions.
All right. Any questions from the council back to staff before I proceed? Okay. So I'm going to move forward with this public hearing. A couple of things. Is the applicant here present this evening who actually made the application?
The application is not, this is basically a public hearing to consider making the improvement. This is a
Right.
the city is the applicant, actually.
Okay. All right.
There are some representatives here, I believe, from
Yep.
Edgewater that
Yep.
have asked to speak
Yep.
in their behalf.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, so I'm going to cover a few ground rules. Hopefully you picked these up for those of you that are here to present as part of the public hearing. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes per speaker. Please list your name and your address when you come forward to speak to the council. And then what I would encourage is that you try to stay and keep all comments together. So if somebody's come up and spoken about something that you were going to cover, unless you have something new to add to the conversation, we ask that you please refrain from coming up and commenting further. So again, those are just some simple things that it helps us make the process go a little smoother in that aspect. And we will strictly be hearing your comments at this point. We'll not be addressing any of them until that hearing part has been closed, and then potentially then the council can have further discussion. So, all right. So with that, I will now open the floor for comments from the public. Again, please come forward, state your name and your address, and again, we'll limit you to 3 minutes, so.
My name is Kathy Parsons, and I'm a condo owner at 9212 Edgewater Circle South. Am I supposed to use this? Okay. And I am also a member of the Edgewater Board. I have 2 other board members here. We were trying not to bring the whole crowd so that we could do this efficiently with you. And we do understand that Minnesota statutes empower municipalities to assess properties for improvement based on the benefits received, and those benefits received are about the increased value of our property. And as it's hard to see up there, but what I wanted to address is Edgewater Circle, as it suggests, is a circle. Our driveway into Edgewater, our condo association, is by measure 100 feet from the street to the far end of our driveway. That's the part of the circle that we use. We have no reason to go any further. In fact, probably not a good idea to go further. There are homes up there, they don't need extra traffic. That's the part we use. That's the part that matters to us. We do own the property. It's undeveloped property further up the road. However, it is undeveloped property, and we have no plans. In fact, a year ago, at our annual meeting, we had been approached by an owner up on the hill who said, we'd like to buy a piece of that property to put a garage on it, which caused at our annual meeting robust discussion where we affirmed something we'd affirmed in 2013, which is we have no intention of developing or selling that property, that the value to us is that buffer. And in fact, when we bought what we call Lot 9, it is the lot that is on the lake. Much of ours is not the piece that is relevant here, but the piece that's on the lake, we bought that not because we wanted the property, but rather because with the increased size of boats and lifts, we actually had to expand enough space out in the water to be able to give everybody a slip. So I am here today to ask that you consider of the, I think I was notified of $21,630 of the cost. What value would that add to our organization? And we would say, I mean, I think there'd be people would say actually the part of that we drive on is actually fine because when we redid our, resurfaced our parking lot in about 18, they just resurfaced into that area. Right or wrong, they did. So it's actually pretty smooth. Understanding, however, that you're facing a bigger question than just that. As we think about value, we would like you to consider the fact that there's no value to us, nor do we want that value. We do not want that property developed now or later. And equally, just so you know, in our bylaws, we can't even rent our places out. That's how important it is up to us that we keep these just for our use. Equally, most of the units rarely come back onto the market because they're handed down in the family. And in fact, the 2 recent ones we had, first, family members, you can inherit it, or there's 30-day right of first refusal for the family members and or owners. So you can, as an owner, you can only have 2 units. So nobody can take over and start to say, now let's sell it and get some real money. So that is basically our request, is that you consider that 100 feet, which is about 27% of the entire part that Breezy Point would be working on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, can I add one thing, which is the mailboxes for the people who are up on the circle are on the Breezy Point side. Ours are not, but they are there. And so the people who use that driveway up, those are the folks who are up on the circle and into the Pelican Township area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Others who would wish to add comment to the public hearing at this time? I'll ask again. Is there anybody who wants to address the council in the public comment? One more time. Hearing none, I will now call the time for public comment closed and would open it up to the council to discuss what their ideas and thoughts are about this process. Anybody want to start? Michael, you want to go first?
I can start. What I heard when I'm trying to look for confirmation here is that the property owners are only utilizing 100 feet of the access and therefore asking for a reduction in said assessment. However, with our current policies, we account for all property abutting the property or the roadway that's being improved. And if you have to think about it for any street that has homes developed along it, it doesn't equal out to say the first homes pay less, the next homes pay more, the next homes pay more, and the person at the very end of the road pays the bulk of it because they are the ones who are utilizing it. We've always addressed it by property frontage on what is there. Just because the driveway is to the west today doesn't mean that it could be to the east, doesn't mean that the property to the south could be accessed. And that's why we've always held it to how much frontage of the roadway is there that we assess on. So that's my mind.
Okay. Councilmember Jensen, do you want to speak?
Sure. I think the road needs to be done. The time to do these projects, especially when Pelican Township reached out to us, they're doing a full depth reclamation. The road is rated at a 4 by the city engineer. It needs to be done, and now is the time to do it. To go back and do it costs a lot more money. That being said, we have item 8A on the agenda. I believe that discussion needs to happen first, and then, depending on the outcome of that, look at the options that were given for this project.
Thank you, Councilmember Jensen. Councilmember Ball?
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Jensen. I think it needs to be done. It's more cost efficient to do it with Pelican Township. As far as what option we would go with, I think it would be nice if we could be consistent with whatever we decide going forward. But.
Thank you. Councilmember Scott?
Yeah, excuse me. Well, this is certainly a unique situation in the fact that from a wider community sort of benefit in terms of road use, it really isn't there. I mean, this is a road that essentially converts into a township road and goes into the township. So I guess I would tend to look at it more as, in some ways, what was already brought up by one of the property owners. What is in fact the benefit of any improvement to that road to the unit owners there? And I think that becomes a lot more difficult when you look at a road that serves no ongoing property and property owners and residents within the community of Breezy Point. That said, I'm not discounting the fact that the road as it serves as a road probably needs to be improved. I think it's more of a question as to what is the overall public benefit or need of the road being improved to the full extent. What would be wrong with going in and addressing directly the part that the unit owners actually rely on and use?
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Scott. Well, I would say that I see both sides, and I do. I understand exactly what the property owners have brought to us in regards to, what value does it have to them beyond the piece that they use, which is a very small piece. It's very obvious if you drive by there, you can see it. At the same time, I look at it from the perspective that the city has a standing policy, ordinance in place right now. And I do agree that we have it on the agenda to address. And so I would lean towards us discussing that, figuring out what we're going to do there. And this piece is a timely piece in my mind because it addresses some of the things that I've seen that I think our ordinance fails to address. That I've kind of talked about in past to council members and to others, administrators as well, about maybe we need to be taking a look at that. And that's why it's on the agenda so that we can address it to start to try and see if we can come up with better solutions to some of these outliers that we have. With that being said, I will state that you'll never get it 100% all the time. you're gonna have some of these that just, that's the way it falls and that's the way it ends up. So I guess where I'm at right now is I think, and I'm hearing this, is that we take a look at the assessment policy, have some discussions around that, and then be able to come back with some type of a decision based off of that of what we want to do moving forward with this. Not hearing any disagreement there. So I think we have, do we need a motion on that? Or can we just do a consensus to move forward with it?
Well, I think there's
Two things.
There's really two issues here.
Yeah.
One is the improvement and making the improvement.
Right.
The second is the amount of the assessment that going forward.
Got it.
You certainly could order the improvement to happen
Right.
and hold an assessment hearing at a later date once the project is done with that assessment. You've already noticed that it isn't going to be more than $21,000.
Right.
But you've also indicated, I'm sorry, you've also indicated that you're going to be looking at the assessment policy. That's actually one of the agenda items this evening. I don't know if you're going to come to a consensus yet, but I think this discussion has prompted the necessity to look at that sooner than you probably would have normally. That said, I think you can order the improvement to happen. State that there'll be an assessment hearing at a later date. The notification will happen of the assessment hearing, and there'll be another opportunity to talk about benefit and prove that benefit.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you. That's what I needed. So I would say then let's move forward. I believe the improvement needs to happen. I don't know if there's anybody here sitting here says that we shouldn't improve it at all. I think it needs it. 1978, it's the last time we know of when anything was done to it. Well, do the math, that's a long time. So I would highly recommend that we move forward with the improvement with the idea that we do have a later assessment meeting after we've been able to address our assessment policy as well. So that's my thoughts, but it's the pleasure of the council as how they want to move forward. We've heard the recommendation, or at least options that we have from our administrator, so.
I would agree with that.
I would as well.
Yeah, with our engineers coming back with this road already rated as a 4, which means it needs to be replaced. The economies of scale with Pelican Township already going to do their portion. It makes no sense for them to stop at our roadway just to later on decide when we're going to move forward with it and have additional expenses. So
It's got to be done.
it makes the most sense to do it now and consider the assessment at a later date.
The struggle I'm having at this point is quite frankly that if it hadn't been the township bringing forward their plans to improve the road in the township, this wouldn't have been on the council's radar at all for improvement. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's my recollection. The focus on Edgewater and improvement really was brought about by the township approaching the city that, hey, we're making this road improvement. Do you want to join in on it or not?
No, you're correct. It's
So-
not incorrect.
Again, when I think about the assessment policy, when I think about how the city has tended to approach road improvements and consideration that's gone into it, it hasn't been, you could say, at least from my understanding, a very common practice for the council to make a unilateral decision to move forward and improve roads, really irrespective of what the adjoining property owners' position, views, likes or dislikes about it are. So to me, I feel like this is sort of the risk here is that this is setting a slightly different precedent. That now the council is saying, well, you know what, on behalf of just bringing our road up to a better standard, a newer condition, we are going to order it done and we're going to move forward regardless of where the adjoining property owners are at on it. And I most certainly don't agree with that.
Well, I think that we would have an assessment meeting later on which then give the property owners an opportunity to speak as well again then. So by moving forward with the project, that doesn't necessarily state that they're stuck with what it's going to be. I think what we're trying to address is that the project move forward with the idea that wherever we land, after we have our discussion about the assessment policy, there will be an opportunity for the property owners again within a later assessment meeting. And giving the council, even at that time, after we've addressed our assessment policy, to look at it one more time as well too. So I guess that's kind of where I see it as, is that we're allowing the project to move forward, but we're not saying that at the end of the day, that full amount is going to be passed on to the property owners. I think what I'm trying to do also is allow us to be able to keep the process moving forward with the idea that that piece is attached to Pelican Townships and they are going to do their portion of the road. It makes the most sense economic wise to be able to have our piece done at the same time for that cost. To do that on our own at a later date would be much more exorbitant in cost, I would believe, rather than having it attached to the project. But that's just kind of my thoughts on it, so.
But in some ways, we kind of have the cart out in front of the horse a little bit, don't we? I mean, isn't the township's time frame for taking on these improvements, I mean, a heck of a lot nearer and close in time than having discussions as a council, settling on assessment policy, modifications, and then getting into an assessment hearing? I mean, at that point in time, isn't it going to be a bit late in the game to be figuring out how much they pay? And then the difference between what is assessed to the property owners, who's paying for that?
Well, yeah.
What was the time frame again, Jerry, for the?
I believe September.
I mean, it's possible to get it all figured out. I'm just a little concerned as to the time needed to really, focus on and otherwise figure out the assessment. I mean, just having an appraisal done, which I'm guessing we'd probably want to have happen at some point, is going to take probably close to a couple of weeks to a month potentially.
Well, it's up to the council. What does the council want to do? If we want to move forward to the project, it's going to require a motion. So something's got to happen with regards to some kind of an action. We can't really just leave it sitting out there. Otherwise, we can bring it back again in August if you want to do that too, but that doesn't solve anything.
Well, I think irregardless, Pelican Township did speed up the process. I mean, they have their portion. The street CIP would have addressed it as well. It would have had to be in concert with Pelican Township. I mean, the cost-wise, the savings is there. I understand where the residents are coming from. I mean, I get it. Assessment policies are not easy. Ours definitely needs to be looked at. That's why it's on the agenda. And I think we need to move forward with the project.
Do you want to make a motion to that
Yep,
effect?
I'll make a motion to move forward with the Edgewater Circle Road improvement and have a subsequent assessment hearing.
Okay, so I have a motion from Councilmember Jensen to move forward with the Edgewater Circle Road Improvement Project with an addition of an assessment meeting to take place before the final decision is made as to the cost and how that will be addressed to the owners of the property. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilmember Ball. Do I have further discussion?
Clarification on that.
Yep.
Option 3 was to order improvement assessed based on professional appraisal of benefit. Can we also add in that this be gone through that process of the appraisal?
That would have to be a change in the ordinance.
Correct. So technically, we couldn't until the ordinance was changed.
Next topic.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
I would just say the road is listed as a 4 on the road CIP, so it is on the list and it would have gotten brought up at some point.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. All right, moving on to item 6, consent agenda. Consent agenda. 6A, minutes to city council meeting June 2nd, 2025. 6B, claims totaling $707,608.27 that include e-checks 3915E to 3939E and checks 140335 to 140403. 6C, resolution approving administrator as signatory. 6D, pavilion request, Bike Around Minnesota. And 6E, Crow Wing County's Municipality Regions 5 Development Commission nomination. Having read to the consent agenda, is there any discussion from the council? Hearing none. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilmember Maroney. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Jensen. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to item 7 in the agenda, sanitary sewer extension. 7A, consider bids received July 3rd, 2025. Award bid to lowest responsible bidder. Would you care to give us an update on that, please?
I can take that one. Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Yep,
I can take it.
yep, go ahead.
Breezy Point advertised the bid for the sanitary sewer extension, and bids were opened on July 3rd, 2025. The lowest responsible bid received was $159,211.97. Woodseth's engineering estimate was $160,000, $418,000.50. Details of the bid were received and sent to the council via email on Thursday after received, and so staff recommends we award the contract to Larson Excavating Contractors of Holdingford, Minnesota.
Thank you, Ally. Do you have any comments from Woodseth?
Nothing more to add unless you
Okay.
have any questions.
I think we're pretty straightforward. So, all right, sounds good. So we're looking for a motion. As you all know, this is the sanitary sewer extension that we're doing up to the corner up there where the new Ace Hardware store is going to be going, and that's what this is coming from. So do I have a motion to approve the bid as submitted?
I'll make a motion to award the sewer extension project to Larson Excavating, Holdingford, Minnesota, in the amount of $159,211.97.
I have a motion from Councilmember Scott. Do I have a second to that motion? I'll second. I have a second from Councilmember Jensen. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on, agenda item number 8, special assessment policy discussion. 8A, city assessment policy information and comparisons. Staff?
I guess I did prepare a short memo based on some of the research I've done with some of the surrounding communities. There are many variations of assessments and special assessments and how people do that. Special assessments are charged on properties for a particular improvement that benefit the property owner. Cities have traditionally used special assessments to finance all or portions of public improvement. The attached is the current City of Breezy Point special assessment policy. For that is utilized to fund or help fund public improvements. This policy has been in effect since 2019. The recent completion of the road CIP plan has prompted future debate on the role that special assessments may play in the funding of future improvement projects. Most cities have policies which address the methods used to determine special assessments. The following is an overview of special assessment policies in neighboring cities. Breezy Point for reconstruction and overlays, local roads, Less than 15 years in age, 50% city, 50% property owners. Local roads greater than 15 years, 100% property owners. That is our current policy today. Pequot Lakes reconstruction is assessed to the benefited properties at an amount corresponding to the benefit determined by the city council with input of a city appraiser. New projects are 100% benefited property owners, which would be the adjacent properties. Jenkins reconstructions and overlays, 100% benefited properties. Upgrade of existing gravel to concrete or pavement, 100% abutting property owners. New construction, 100% abutting property owners. Cross Lake, cost assessed based on a benefit received, benefit opinion provided by an appraiser. Reconstruction bituminous, assessed based on appraiser. Gravel to pavement is basically 100% abutting property owners. And new construction is 100% abutting property owners. Nisswa does not have an assessment policy, and they just deal with on a case-by-case basis. I do have other communities that I can certainly provide other information about, but this was basically the folks that are closest to us that have similar type communities.
Thank you for that. So I'll start this off. One of the things that I've talked about for a long time is the idea that our assessment policy, in my mind, when I think about it, so our current policy says 100% basically new. If it's less than 15 years or over 15 years, it's 100%. So under 15 years is 50%. And we assess that directly to the taxpayers that live along what about that road. Okay. We have some roads within our city that don't fall under that, and we know those. Ranchette, I'm not gonna list them all, but Dove, Ranchette, a few of the Bushman's one of them. We have some of those that are collector roads that we don't have that policy in place. And that the city then takes on the responsibility for keeping those up and paying for them. And I guess I've long thought that, is there a better solution? Do we have a better way of doing this? Because here's my thinking. So we have collector roads, everybody uses those, city pays for them, okay? The other roads are not just used by the taxpayers that live on those roads. There are other people that access and use those roads all the time. I mean, I can use mine. I mean, there's lots of people that don't live on Shady, which is not paved at this point, but they use the road. They travel from point A to point B to get there. And so you're asking the citizens of the community to pay for a road that they, while they utilize it, and I understand the valuation part, I get it. It's supposed to add value to your home, so on and so forth, tax value, that kind of thing. I get that point. But I look at it from a bigger picture of saying, how do we look at it to maybe be more equitable across community-wide? That look. And I think about it from the perspective of our community is a community that is used by a lot of people that don't live here. They come here, they utilize the roads, so, but they're not full-time residents and things of that nature. So I'm thinking about different ways that we can look at it. I think it needs to be addressed. And I think there's been some things in other parts of the state where some communities have been challenged by their assessment policies, by people who have said, wait a minute, we don't think it adds the valuation to our property to the degree that you're saying it does, and have proven that as a point, then have put that community in a situation that way. So I just think we need to think about it. At the end of the day, if we end up where we started, then that's where it is. I think there's a better solution there for us to look at how we can pay for our roads. We have a CIP that's sitting out there right now. We know that there's a lot of funds that are gonna have to be put forth to do that. So how do we look at this? And that's kind of this piece as well. So that's just kind of an opening thought or thinking process of kind of where maybe we need to be thinking about, or, you know, but I definitely am interested to hear what the council has to say. So whoever wants to discuss, go by all means.
Well, I would tend to agree, as the assessment policy currently is framed, that there needs to be some modifications considered and some refinement in certain areas as to truly what is intended. I think part of what you're getting at, or at least what I thought I was hearing you speaking to, is the difference between really 100% of an assessment of the actual cost of the improvement, different than 100% of what an appraiser would determine to be the benefit to the adjoining property owner. I think most probably know that you're likely not going to be able to assess 100% of the actual cost, because typically the cost involved with the road improvement on a local road is going to be greater than the benefit to the adjoining property owner. So I think that that's some of the reason, I suspect, as to why a lot of the surrounding communities have as a part of their consideration, it's based upon an appraised value of benefit. So I think that is the pretty key point that has to be decided on, is what are we actually talking about being assessed?
No, I don't disagree with that. Go ahead, Councilmember Moore.
Just a
Did you want to say?
question, based on both of your conversations. In my mind, there's three types of road improvements. There's minimum maintenance to gravel,
Right,
there's gravel to pavement,
right.
and there's pavement to pavement. Are you talking about all three classifications, or are we looking at more pavement to pavement?
I'd say gravel to pavement and pavement to pavement.
Okay.
I think
That's
we'd
the
almost
two.
have to take one at a time and.
Right, but
is where, like-
I'm thinking about it from that perspective when I talk. So to clarify for you, as I think about it in my mind, it's a gravel to pavement situation or a pavement to pavement situation. Yes, they're separate. So they have to be looked at, but those were the two that I was
That's what your
thinking
mind
about.
was.
That was where I was thinking.
You mean reconstruction?
That,
Pavement to, yeah, reconstruction.
right.
Pavement.
So like what we just talked about here with the idea of the Edgewater piece. Because that's a reconstruction.
Can I ask you, Mr. Scott, what was your mindset when we were talking about, was it more of the reconstruction, or were you also thinking about the gravel to pavement? Or undecided yet?
Well, to me, I think it comes down to a couple of things you need to determine upon and get clear on, which I think the city has done, the classification type of the roads in the community, such as collector, local, so forth and so on. Once we get really clear on that, then it's to consider within those classifications the current level of improvement. In other words, what's the improvement that's going to be needed going forward, and then kind of based on that, stepping back a little bit into how do we see being a fair and reasonable approach in terms of assessment. I think most know that on a collector road, the community at large is going to contribute towards and pay for those costs. So I just think the more we can get clear on the road classifications we're considering being assessed for improvement, and then the improvement type itself is kind of, I guess, overall where my thinking was.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments?
You know, I think, I mean, they're good points for Councilmember Roney and Councilmember Scott and yourself, Mayor Rogenkamp. What I look at is the city is on the hook for $16.1 million in road improvements at 15 years. That's with engineering fees. We have one way to pay for them, the levy. So if you look at these improvements, okay, assessments, if we keep them, we need those to budget, correct? I mean, we have to know what is the city's responsibility. We don't have the luxury of a local option sales tax.
No, we don't.
Crow Wing County does, so that's off the table. So we have one way to pay for them, taxes. So how do you equitably, without making the levy double-digit increases, pay for the streets? Obviously, I don't think a 15-year plan is even realistic at the 1.1 million if we go with the street CIP at a 15-year plan. So if we don't have assessments to some degree, how do you pay for it?
Right, and to your point, I don't disagree with that at all. I think we need to have an assessment.
Yep.
Where I'm looking at is what level of assessment does that need to be? And so right now, as it's stated now, we have the 100 and the 50, 50 for
Yep.
less than 15.
Yep.
It's 100 if it's, 15 or more new. So, excuse me, with that being said, I know that surrounding communities have the 100 and 100, but and that's what I was hearing, and those are the notes I took. Most of them are new construction or, it's 100%. So I'm just thinking, and that's kind of where some of my thoughts were coming from too. Are there ways that we can look at this, and is there more of an equitable split that we can do with the citizens that help them, but it's still helping us too, I guess is where I'm looking at. And does it become more where we're looking at specific pieces? Councilmember Scott said something about appraisals, but also is there specific, we have our roads categorized, but is there another level there? Is there something else that we consider? I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we have to look at it and decide something. That's why we're having the discussion. What does it look like? What do we do? Or is it something where new construction and gravel to pavement 100% stays in place and they're assessed that, but we change something with regards to when we replace it? Maybe it's not the 50%, maybe it's less, maybe it's not, I don't know. That's, or is it 75% to the property owner, or is it, percentages are percentages, we can change that if we want to. And I would say that while our surrounding communities have 100%, that doesn't mean that we have to. And we have one community that has none. So they
They have some, they just don't post what it is.
they just take it case by case. So, and I know we're looking at surrounding communities, but I'd be willing to bet if we started pushing outward across our boundaries and looking, there are other small communities in the state that probably maybe have some differences. I don't know. Maybe that would benefit us to hear what those are, to kind of feel, maybe are there some other creative ideas out there that have been developed by
feel-
small communities?
I feel like it would. I kind of agree with Councilman Scott that right now it seems to me that you have to kind of go through all the different stages to look at, we have different categories. Is there categories that are developed that are not on there or that should be removed that were on there? I tend to think Breezy is a unique city, and so I think the categories make sense to me. I know we differ in opinion there, but it would be nice if there were other cities that had similar types of collector roads where we could see if they have a similar idea or a different way of going about that. It was discussed about, how much it benefits the property owner. Like that would be something that would be interesting to look at as far as, do we move to something like that? And I don't know what those numbers end up looking like.
Right.
Like, are there examples out there of, what, is that more than 50% then typically? Is it less than 50%? Is it, how does that turn out for residents? Because I just don't know.
Right.
And the one thing about the local roads, greater than 15 years, I don't know that, I don't understand, I guess, the difference between the less than 15 years and more than 15 years from that perspective, because who's driving the change then? If it's the city and it's our fault it wasn't improved within that 15 years, then does it make sense to assess the property when it was 100%? I just had a question there. I don't know the answer to it, but just a thought.
And others may be able to correct me. I believe 15 is kind of that standard out there that says time of length of replacement, or usually within 15 years. I'm not sure on that. Is that what it is? No? Yes?
There's an engineer back there that probably can answer that question better than
I've
I
heard
can.
that before. It's like 15 years, but I could be wrong.
There's a lot of variables.
Okay.
Depends on your maintenance.
Got it.
If you chip seal regularly and have regular maintenance, you're gonna get a lot
Right.
more life out of that. I mean,
Typically, it was put in by a developer and it was shitty.
Okay.
good maintenance.
Okay.
Who approved it?
Okay.
The city approved it.
Good. Thank you. So how do we want to proceed, council? thoughts, ideas? Councilmember Maroney, haven't heard much from you. You've tried a few things, but do you have other thoughts or comments that you want to add?
Mr. Scott brought up the question of, are we talking about cost versus the appraisal? And my question would kind of stem back to what we we're talking about before. When it goes from pavement to pavement, how does, and I don't know if anybody can answer this, how does that appraisal look? Because it already has pavement versus new pavement.
It's a before and after appraisal.
Okay.
It's a before today and the value added after. I should also tell you that the statute on special assessments says that the assessment can't be more than the value that's added to the property. Typically, councils make that determination, but they are subject to criticism and arbitrary decisions by doing that without having some background. I can tell you that in my former life, we did a lot of rehabs and started out with an appraisal on each lot, not every lot, but we'd take a project and we'd pull out one or two of the lots with the homes on them and do an appraisal, and that appraisal determined what the assessment would be. It's probably the fairest way to do those things. It's the most defendable way to do it. It also allows you, if you have a similar project the following year, they did minimal appraisals the following year and used the last year's appraisal plus an inflation factor. And that helped you in the budgeting process also in figuring out what your next project would cost and how to fund that. So I do believe there's a real benefit into doing the appraisals as part of the process.
So could an assessment policy be written that a landowner would pay up to 100% of the appraisal difference and then the city pays the rest?
Well, whatever, assuming let's assume you have 10 parcels on a street, and that street is costing you $1,000. So in each parcel, so if you divided that up equally, it would be like $100 a parcel. If the appraisal came back and said the before value is X and the after value is, say, $75, you would assess the 75 and the city would be responsible for the 25. And that's an oversimplification, but you use the appraisal to determine the assessment. The remaining, anything that isn't covered by the assessment, then becomes an obligation of the city. Totally, the general fund.
If I may.
Yes, no, I was actually, I was actually going to ask you next, so you're on my list.
Yeah, we did this in Minnetrista on our most recent project, and I think from a city risk management standpoint and transparency, I agree with Jerry that a benefit appraisal is the best way to go about it. The problem with the way you're doing it is you're likely assessing more than the benefit, or you could.
High
the property
potential.
owner. And then if there was an eventual goal to just levy all of the street improvements, you could benefit assess for, 10 years, lower it by 5% each year until it gets down, or 10% to zero, and then it's all tax levied. I don't know if that's the goal, but the goal of an assessment policy is to assess the benefit to the owner, and an appraiser helps you do that, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that input, Ally.
With that type of policy, if implemented, how does one budget for that?
What do you mean?
Just looking in the future for, a 15-year road plan, if we considered a whatever the appraisal comes back at, that's 100% on the property owner, the rest on the city. Does that fluctuate by road, by?
Typically, it's going to fluctuate by road based on the appraisal. Assuming you have two roads that are the same, I think you can project based on inflation what that value is going to be. But it's a tool that you use to budget for the following projects. And you start off with a number, and you can carry that forward from year to year if you so choose. Or you can do an appraisal on every one of them before you even get into the budget process.
If I may, so you could have, a $10,000 assessment for every reconstruction. And then times that by the number of properties, if that's what the appraisal says. That's what you budget it for. Then take that off of the total project cost, is how we did it. I'm not sure if could be different, but it's kind of by type of project, is what I've experienced.
Similar projects, also that it's helpful for the resident to know that last year it was $2,500, this year it's going to be $2,750 or something like that. That allows them to get prepared, and it shows consistency amongst all the residents around the community that it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when you get into that circle.
Yeah.
In Administrista, was that just reconstruction?
We did a big reconstruction, and that's when they implemented this, because our assessment policy was similar, and it was, $5 million road project. So they did the benefit appraisal for the full depth reclamation. I think it was 10 grand, and then they'll use that again, but they'll add 3% to this year's reconstruction project to, because similar projects have similar benefit to the property owner. If it was a mill and overlay, that's different, or reclamation, that's different. So.
And to me, it seems like that's pieces of what needs to be or should be clarified in the assessment policies. Again, what is the nature of improvement that's intended to be assessed, right? Because it really does get to quite a big difference between if it's already bituminous and you're just simply going through and doing an overlay, that's one thing. But if you're going in for other utility reasons or needs and doing a full reconstruct, then that gets into quite a different cost, right? And in some way, I think, given the effort that's already been done, through the streets improvement plan and identifying, and maybe that work was done even prior to the information on road conditions that has been recently provided, somehow it seems to me like we should factor in some way, how the condition rating of roads lends itself to the timing of improvements. I know some of the city's approach right now has been on gravel roads largely being, improved at the request of property owners. And I'm not saying that maybe shouldn't continue to be the case, but it might go to more of the bituminous, the current paved roads. If we've got roads identified, based on certain conditions, I don't know, it just seems to me like that should be included in the assessment policy in some way as a trigger of when the improvement happens. I don't know. And then again, maybe as we talk about it more and work through it, maybe it doesn't have a place in it.
I think you kind of raised an interesting point that kind of came to my mind is perhaps instead of trying to look at the full assessment policy, which is there's a lot to look at there, maybe we focus on pavement to pavement on that assessment policy first, because I think there is a bigger advantage from gravel to pavement, which we can leave what we have as, it's generated by 70% petition, it's still 100%, leave that as is for now.
Right.
Address what we're looking at for pavement to pavement reconstruction and address that portion of it, get that narrowed down. Because if you, we could go back and forth on what we like about that portion, this portion. I think if we focused on that portion alone and look at what we could apply, because that's where the larger portion of the CIP
That's what I was gonna say.
wasn't looking at gravel
What the
roads.
CIP
Yep.
is, paved roads.
All paved. It's all our paved roads that
and-
we have currently in the city, correct?
That is correct.
So it's not even looking at any of our others. So that's a good point.
if you-
I like
if-
that from that perspective of that we focus just on that piece of it right now. That doesn't mean that we don't want to address that. It just means maybe if we take it a piece at a time, it's a little less undaunting.
Well, and we can start off with that capital improvement plan, see how the first couple years look, and
Right.
And again, I mean, you know, I was one of them in the 2015. Our road got assessed for
Yep.
from gravel to pavement.
Yep.
And so I think if we just focus on the reconstruction portion of it. And
I think it's a good idea to start with that because that's the issue at hand, but I don't want to just leave the rest as is without saying like it's good to go for like the next 2 years and then something comes up with a new construction. So I think it's timely now to look at all of it, just like many of the ordinances. So we can start with, reconstruction.
Yeah,
But-
because if we have the ordinance open, that's the time to do the changes, rather than have to come back to it and reopen it again and do it all over. So that makes sense, but maybe that's the first step, is to address that piece, to see if we can get some language drawn up that can be put in front of us, that might, take a look at something different. Jerry?
I believe that the current policy is a policy, it is not an ordinance.
It's policy.
It's just a policy that's been passed by the council, it is not an ordinance.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, so it's a policy, not an ordinance, okay. But I still think the point stands. Whether we look at one piece at a time, I think we need to address it all while we're in there and make something out of it. And we may find that we leave what we have in there where it's at, but having a discussion about to determine what that is might be prudent since we're there. So I'm kind of hearing that maybe we should direct staff to put some language together for us regarding the pavement to pavement. Let's start with that piece. And do we want to address it from the perspective of appraisal then? That's kind of what I'm hearing, is that we
I
would,
think that makes
Yeah.
the most sense.
Yes,
I agree
Ally.
with it.
Yep.
Those will cost money as well, so it might be beneficial to see how much that would cost, the appraisal itself. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what.
I did check with Cross Lake, and their last appraisal on a project was $1,800.
okay. So yeah, I mean, maybe look at, so probably then add another piece to that, and that is to take a look at the cost, just so we start to have an idea what that looks like out there too. But I think if I'm kind of hearing everybody, that's probably where we want to start and look at it from a appraisal perspective. What's that look like? How do we want to do that? And then maybe bring some language back to us and let us take a look at it, and we can kind of take the next step from there. What does the council think about that? Are they comfortable with that, or would they rather see other things added?
I think at this point, I'm comfortable with that approach.
Okay.
I don't want to bite off more than we can chew. We need to focus on
I agree.
the paved roads and,
Well, they seem to be our top priority right now. That's not to mean that we're not gonna have to address all the others, but that's another discussion, so. Any other comments or thoughts? Okay,
Well, I guess my
Yep.
only other thought
Go
kind
ahead.
of gets back to if we're going to focus on currently paved roads, then, I mean, is there some value in identifying what the primary nature of improvement would be, right? I mean, we're either talking about an overlay likely,
Like-
or the road really needed to be reconstructed, right? I don't know if there's, maybe there are other
I think that.
approaches to improvements beyond that.
I think the CIP, based on the rating of the roads, determines what needs to happen. So there are some that they're talking about overlays, but I think the majority of the ones that are the highest rated need the full depth reclamation at this point?
So, a 4 would be recommended to be a full depth reclamation, and a 5 would be a full reconstruct. 1 was basically a future overlay.
Got it.
2 overlay, and 3 no inlay.
And I would throw in also, some of the roads that probably have just overlay on them, portions of them would need to be reconstructed because portions are settling, like cul-de-sacs, or there's a spot, for whatever reason, that little portion is more, but the rest of the project would be overlaid.
All right, well, I think we have some direction to get you started anyway, to put some language together around that, and then bring it back to us, and let's take a look at it, and we'll readdress it at the next meeting then. Okay, sounds good. Thank you, everybody, for your input. All right, moving on. Let's see, I gotta get my agenda back up here. All right. Number 9, Transportation Planning Study Cost Share Agreement. 9A, Professional Services and Cost Share Agreement for Transportation Planning Study.
Go right ahead.
Ally?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Before you tonight is the proposed professional services cost share agreement for the transportation study initiated by Eagleville Elementary School in Crow Wing County. The study will address traffic and congestion issues affecting the area. An RFP will be issued and a study is expected to be completed by January 2026. The Breezy Point share of the cost is not to exceed $5,000. Keep in mind that this is just for the study that's being completed. I can update the council early 2026 as the study is received. So tonight, we're just looking for approval of the professional services agreement as drafted in your packet.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion? Does anybody have any questions?
I've been attending the meetings. I agree. The city needs to participate in this for the study. There will be, as part of the study, they're going to look at alternatives, besides a roundabout. The decision will be made on who to select based off the RFP on the 21st of this month. So we should participate. I think parents know that it can, traffic, over the years it's gotten worse. The pandemic kind of exacerbated the problem. Open enrollment, there's more parents, traffic, and then look at it in January depending on the results.
And I've been aware of it as well, and I've asked Steve or Councilmember Jensen to sit in on those meetings for us to kind of keep us apprised of what's going on in a part of the process. But being involved, Pequot's involved, we're involved, and then as well as the county and then the school district. So I think, what we're doing to move forward, at least it's us at the table and we're involved. So I think that's where we need to go and find out what they're going to come up with once it comes out and the study is put together. So do I have a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion to approve the traffic study plan.
So I have a motion from Councilmember Jensen to approve the professional services cost share agreement for the transportation planning study for Corner 11 near Eagleview. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilmember Maroney. Any further discussion?
Just to clarify, this is a study that's being looked at being done in 2026?
It'll start when the school year and then end in January 2026. There's also parking lot, the internal traffic flow that's going to be looked at for the school itself. The part of the referendum, they have money budgeted to redo the parking lot, and they're just looking at, traffic flow, where are the buses, where are parents picking up also as part of it.
Yeah, no promises that they'll make any changes to the road based on the study, but it makes sense to participate, I think.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. All right, moving on to item 10 on the agenda, police vehicle purchase, 10A 2026 Chevy Tahoe. Chief Sandell.
Yes, so this is requesting permission or approval to place an order for 26 Tahoe. And to answer some questions, why would we do that in July? There's been high demand and low volume turnout, so if we wait, we likely will not get a squad car next year. So all this does is it gives us a spot in line for the build. So we're not locked in. We can cancel the order. We don't have to take delivery of the vehicle. So even though it's before budget and we have our money established for our squad car, we can back out if, for instance, you did not want to purchase a squad car next year. The cost that was mentioned in the memo is for a complete build, equipment, graphics, everything complete. Hopefully it's estimated a little high because once again, we don't have the current number for the cost of a 26 Tahoe. So this simply gets us on the list so we can guarantee a spot and hopefully get a squad car in 26. So our current squad that we have on order has not arrived yet. We're still waiting. And we have always gotten in early like this just to try to beat the rush and actually get a vehicle.
Okay.
Are there any questions or?
What's our current status on the squads we currently have? We have the one that's coming, right?
Correct.
So that's going to be a 25 when we eventually get it? Is that what it
Yes.
is? Okay. And what are our other ones at this point?
So I guess to better explain, we buy one vehicle per year. And we have that vehicle for 6 years.
Okay.
That used to be the case. Now with the hire of Marshall, we are now switching to a 7-year rotation, which means we'll have a squad car for 7 years before it's replaced.
Okay.
And thinking off the top of my head, I think our oldest squad is an 18 that we're getting rid of, so 19, I guess, is where we begin.
Okay.
We have two 2020s because we did not get a squad car in 2019.
Okay.
And that was, we had some issues with availability with Ford.
Okay. All right. And it looks like you're making the switch to Chevy.
Correct. Part of that, there's two reasons. Part of which was we didn't get a vehicle from Ford and then they shut down production for a year. So you weren't gonna get a Police Explorer for a year. And our paramedics, with the addition of our Lucas devices and all the equipment they haul, our Explorers were getting very small for all the equipment and gear they have.
Okay.
So the larger full-size Tahoe works much better.
Okay. That's good. Other questions from the council?
I would like to see Administrator Polfus and the Finance Committee have a chance to get together and at least look at budgets, at least a preliminary, before we move forward with this. I think this year's budget is gonna be tight, and I think it would be nice, I would feel more comfortable if the Administrator and the Finance Committee had a chance to look at this.
Okay. Other comments?
I wouldn't ordinarily disagree, Steve, but we're likely looking at roughly a month out from now before we're able to meet, just another month behind where we would ideally like to be with hopefully getting a new police squad. And from my understanding, this is a vehicle equipment investment that's already part of the levy and incorporated into funds that are set aside to cover this cost. So I guess I see more of a need to move forward than I do any, I guess, benefit in what level of change might come from discussions with the Finance Committee.
I would agree with Councilman Scott.
It is a part of our capital improvement plan.
Okay.
And as I said before, if for some reason down the road, we didn't want to proceed with it, this just allocates us a spot. It doesn't commit us to it. We can back out if we choose.
Okay.
And knowing the past, we've frequently, every year, have ordered at least one squad. The 7-year replacement plan, and again, with us being able to back out, I don't see a need to hold back at this point. Obviously, we're coming up to budget season. We're going to be going through that whole process, but a new squad has always been something on that budget allocation. And I think it's good for the community. And again, we can always back out if we decide to change our mind on where that budget allocation is going to.
Councilmember Ball, do you have any comments that you'd like to
Yeah,
make?
I think I already mentioned after Brad spoke, but yes, I agree with Councilman Scott. I think it makes sense to move forward at this point. As been stated, that it can be canceled
Okay.
if we change our mind.
Thank you. I didn't hear you, so I apologize for that. Yeah, I mean, I get the piece with the budget, and we are going to be going through that and looking at it. The fact that we can back out, I guess, gives me a little bit of the ability to say, okay, let's go get it on the list. And if some reason in the budgeting process, there's a change made or something, we can go back and say, hey, we're not going to take it now. So, I guess I would lean towards moving forward with getting it on the list. I'm just curious, what's the timeline to back out? Do they have a timeline?
I can't say definitively, but generally, they don't even start building them until pretty late in the year.
Okay.
December-ish,
Okay,
whatever.
so,
So
yeah, we'll
I
have
would
them
expect that we could back out all the way late into the year.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. Yeah, I was just thinking along the timelines regarding the budget process and when we'll have to have that set. So we probably we'd still be in that window, it sounds like.
We should be through the process in
Yep.
that timeframe.
Okay.
correct.
All right. All right, so we've had some thoughts. Is there a motion? Does anybody want to make a motion to move forward with this?
I'll make a motion to approve getting on the list for a 2026 Chevy Tahoe.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Maroney to allow the police chief to go ahead and get us on the list for this 2026 Chevy Tahoe. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Scott. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. All right, thank you, chief. All right, item 11, city street parking, 11A, Dove Street information. Who's up on this one? Administrator Polfus or Mr. Bonesack? I see this over here, so she's acquiescing to you.
This is a reaction to an email that the council members received based on some concerned residents along Dove Street, expressing concern about a semi-tractor that occasionally parks on the side of the road and it obstructs the view and/or the traffic lanes. We anticipated that there would have been somebody here to address that this evening. That's the only reason it's an agenda item.
Okay.
I believe that the police department has gone through this and is, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but I think you're satisfactory that if there is a problem and they get called, that we can do something about it. But right now, it hasn't really caused concern.
Correct. So I think total, we received between 4 and 6 complaints. And I have not witnessed this vehicle parked there, but our officers have. And he's parking off the roadway as much as he can, and the officers have stated that it is not a traffic hazard, it's not posing any risk. And we can't prohibit the parking of it without an ordinance, as the League of Minnesota Cities states.
Yep.
I spoke with the daughter of the driver, I could not reach the driver. She indicated that he's coming in late at night, has no other transportation to get there, goes to bed, gets up the next day, takes a shower, and leaves. I did inform her of our 48-hour rule we have in this city, that you can't have something parked for over 48 hours in one spot. And she said if he's there for any period of time, they take it to the movie theater in Jenkins. So I know the complainant had mentioned it had been there for several days. I'm not aware of that. They're claiming this has not occurred. So, he's obviously working and trying to make a living, and I understand that sometimes that can potentially happen.
Okay.
Do we know where, I mean, some kind of idea on Dove as to where it's being parked?
Yes, it's over by the campgrounds, by the High Lines. And I don't know if it's on top or below the little hump there, but Councilman Jensen would know, because he,
Yeah, Chief Sandell and I went out and looked at it. And again, it was on the agenda under the assumption that the group email, the concerned Dove Street residents wanted an opportunity to speak on it. It'd be on towards the top of the hill, just down from the campground. Chief Sandell, they're gonna enforce the ordinance that we have in place that you can't park longer than 48 hours. If the residents chose not to show up, it can't be too big of an issue. The one thing that did come out with Officer Lorch, the driver of the trucks, at least his license, is not a Breezy Point address. Because I had brought up the question, if he is a Breezy Point address, and lives here, why can't he leave a car? It was offered to him to park at the overflow for the public access as well. But I haven't heard anything else. There's been no emails. Chief Sandell hasn't had any further issues, so I think it's a done deal.
Any other comments or input from the council before we move on? I would just state that I would leave it to our police department. That's why we have them. We have policies in place. It's their job to carry those out and enforce them. I understand that our citizens at time will have concern about certain things, but it sounds like it's been investigated, it's been looked at, it's something that they monitor. I'm sure the officers that are out on patrol, they probably, when they get down into that area, they check and look, so I guess I feel comfortable with the fact that we've got it addressed, and if not, and they want to bring it back to our attention, well, that'll leave up to them. I guess it'd been nice to have them here, but evidently, as you said, they didn't feel the importance to be here, so, all right. We'll move on then. Item 12, Shoreview Lane erosion and instability, 12A, Shoreview Lane erosion concerns. Is Joe, are you going to address that for us, or is it going to be?
We'll start out. It's Councilman Jensen.
Yeah. This issue started 4 years ago. There was a healthy shoreline on Shoreview just before you head out to the point. ATVs and ATVs with trailers basically destroyed 6 foot by about 4.5 feet, about 3 foot down of shoreline. I think, it was a good recommendation that the council asked that the DNR and Soil and Water be involved. I have talked to Jake Free multiple times over the last year on non-city business, on shoreline issues, blowing leaves into the lake, cutting out bogs and letting them float around the bay. This issue also ties into the riprap work that was done last fall. The reason being is the DNR, to approve the permit, wanted the live growth stakes put in. Riprap alone will not hold the shoreline. You need vegetation. Since that was permitted and based off when we get back to the damaged shore, I asked the hydrologist, how are these stakes going to survive if the area isn't blocked off? Because if you go down there now, currently, there's areas that are 20 plus feet where all the vegetation that was planted is gone from ATV traffic, snowmobile, and that's in smaller areas all the way down the road. And he did not mention the part about blocking off areas until after I pressed the fact, is how do you expect this to work? So he is going to follow up, and since it is permitted and they mandated that the city do this, that what are you going to do? I mean, at the end of the day, that's always been access where the riprap is for ice fishermen. What should be done is it should be roped off, leave an area for access so that you can establish vegetation and keep, otherwise, Public Works is gonna be fixing it at some point. I mean, riprap is just rollers for the ice. You can't stop it, but vegetation holds it together. The west side has vegetation. Granted, the bay ice pressure isn't as much. And then Joe, like I say, he got the email from Jake Free, the hydrologist. I was with Joe and listened in when Soil and Water came out. Now, Soil and Water made it clear they do not enforce anything. They are there to provide recommendations on how to restore
Their resource.
a shoreline. And he was a very nice guy. So of the proposals that he proposed, you have to block it off to allow, if vegetation, one of those is selected, you have to give it time to grow, or it's not gonna do anything, it's a waste of time. That being said, there is a road there. And that's why I brought it up to Joe. The part that he refers that is a ramp is not a ramp to keep the shoreline from eroding away up to the road. They dumped at least 1.5 yards of gravel. And that was just to hold the shoreline together. On the south end, you can jump up and down in it's like a bog. It's eroding away. Now, over the weekend, you have wake boats, you have jet skis. Just pulling away from the dock will erode the shoreline. And then at some point, if the city chooses to do nothing, then you're gonna be dealing with a road with a lake right next to it. So the question is, what option do you wanna do, if any? And based off the recommendations, I would choose, where is his, option 1. To stabilize that area, let it put in the willows just like they did for the shoreline. There's still gonna be access, and that's really the issue. The DNR, they won't make a stance one way or another.
Well, and I understand why.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of the road. And the
Then they
fact that
do-
the statement on the water piece, and they've got it in there, and I knew that one too, so.
What do you mean by stance?
Well, if you talk to them, they do not want to commit to saying, no, block this or do that. I think the DNR does an excellent job with one hand tied behind their back. It's the politics that takes over. Just like when leaves were blown into the lake, this spring, there was 2 feet of black muck of decomposing leaves on the shoreline, or the whole west side, all along the shoreline. That was from somebody blowing leaves in, not just one house. They cannot enforce that. They provide you with a pamphlet on why you shouldn't do it, listing reasons. I mean, it's political, plain and simple.
But is the case law they mentioned saying that you have to leave it open for access? Okay, Just so we're clear.
Yes.
The Minnesota
You
case
do.
law is you need to leave
Because
it
of the road
Which we talked about last month, but,
along
okay.
the bordering of the water. And you see that, there's lots of other places, even in this area, where you have lakes that butt right up to the road surface and people are allowed to access the road there or access the lake because of that rule.
Yeah.
So that's what we have in place there. But doing something to stabilize the shoreline in some way or some form, which I think Steve's talking about option one, I think it's staking of red osier, if I heard right, which does grow very prolifically. And at one time, history lesson for you, Steve, probably back before you were there, that whole shoreline down along there in front of your place, that all was red osier.
Yep.
All along that whole edge line, that was all red osier on the west side. Not the east side, but the west side.
Yep.
So it's known to do what it's designed to do very well. And as it disappears, people, first thing they do, oh, we gotta get rid of that, grub it all out. Well, I gotta have a nice
Like
open
buckthorn.
view. And then you got all the other issues that come with it. So there's something to be said about having some
I
vegetation
mean, the
along
key
shoreline.
is, you know, the lake access is there on the riprap. That is about as gentle of a slope that you can get. But you have to, the DNR condones controlling it for a growth season. So that being said, it's fall, you know, through the following fall. I mean, you have to give things time to grow. So it's interesting. On the history lesson, was it truly a road or was it made bigger?
No, the road was always there.
It was always there?
Always there. Back in the day, it was gravel.
Okay.
Yep, and yes, over the time, that's eroded quite a bit on that east
Yes.
side, tremendously. We've had to do all that work, but at one time, there was that all the way along there too. But that just came from years of erosion.
Yeah.
Just wave action and ice action, and I mean, that's because that's such a narrow peninsula that runs out there, so, yeah. So, an even more longer history lesson is we used to parachute ducks across there way back in the day. Way back in the day, but anyway. So, okay, so council, we're kind of looking at some options here. Give some direction to staff, I think, as to what we want to do. We hear Councilmember Jensen's thoughts about proposal one. Is there any other comments, suggestions, ideas, thoughts? Now's the time.
So just looking for clarification, this issue has come up based upon a complaint that was made to Soil and Water related to the improvements that were made to Lakeview?
No. Well, it's two-part. The DNR, to approve the project, it had to include the live stakes and vegetation. Because what they found is the riprap, they didn't even want to approve all the riprap that was done. They ended up doing that with the live stakes going in, which will hold the shoreline together. Because at the end of the day, the rock is in water and the ground obviously is wet. With the expansion and contraction, you're not going to stop the ice, but they're finding, I mean, it dispels for years, everybody thought you had to have the biggest boulders that you could find, and that was the answer for shoreline. What they're finding out now is if you look at the state uses that granite quite a bit for their drainage ponds along road because the granite is flat on three sides and interlocks. But to supplement, to hold shorelines together, they want the vegetation as well. And actually, the city used to mow both sides to the ground years ago, and then it stopped, and that's when the vegetation started to grow.
So the staking, a part of the erosion control requirements associated with that road improvement were not done, or
They were
and they
done,
were-
but they never, the DNR, it took quite a lengthy conversation to get to the point when I kept asking, how does it grow if you're going to have ATV and snowmobile traffic? They said in other areas, there was one specifically on Round Lake that he mentioned, that they blocked it off for a growing season, made signs that it said it was part of a shoreline restoration, still made sure there was access to give vegetation time to grow.
Any other input from the council or direction? Is everybody comfortable with option one and directing staff to do that?
So option one doesn't talk about blocking anything off. Is that what we're intending to do?
It was what the DNR hydrologist said, because my point was, if you just keep planting vegetation and you know that it's a traffic area, how does it grow? I mean,
Yeah.
it can't. You do it for a growing season and make signs that state this is part of a shoreline restoration project.
Is that our intent though, I guess, is what I'm asking with
Yeah,
solution one?
you need,
Yeah.
it needs to be
Okay,
stabilized.
I'm just curious because it's not in their option, which was what they recommended too as number one, but for soil and water at least, but it's not, doesn't say like block it off. So I just want to be
was
clear that that's
from
what we
the
want to
soil
do.
and water, all they get involved in is recommendations for vegetation.
Okay.
Jake Free, the DNR hydrologist, he's the one that said that's what they've
Done before.
because it has to grow, and they realize that. And I think it's project by project. If you're doing a highway and a drainage pond next to the road, you're not gonna have any traffic. You know, it's
Right.
unique to lakes.
Thanks.
Well, in an option one, it also identifies two different types of vegetation that could be used.
Correct. The willows is what they planted, basically both types of vegetations, Councilmember Scott, are used all the way down on the riprap project. I know in talking to Joe Zierden, the willows and the dogwoods grow quick, will hold the shoreline together. I guess that would be, to me, something that grows quick. If you're only gonna be able to close something down for a limited time frame, you want something to take root.
All right,
And-
council, where are we at? Let's move forward. What do we want to do? Is option one, are we okay with that? Do we want to direct staff to do that? With the idea that they would go ahead and replant stakes and then it would be blocked, I would think. That's kind of what Councilmember Jensen is recommending us to do, to limit the access there in that area so that that vegetation has a chance to take root and gain some footing there rather than not having it blocked off and then it just gets flattened again. So, any thoughts? Are we good with that? Everybody comfortable with that? To direct staff to move forward with that?
I guess I'm not sure that I am. This is the first growing season since the improvements, that stretch of road has been done, right? I remember the time.
Yeah, it started last November, and if you go down and look, the areas that were crossed, there is nothing growing. There is no vegetation, and that's multiple points across the road. Unfortunately, if the DNR would have conveyed that, then there could have been a plan to provide the access in a controlled spot so that the rest of the vegetation can take hold. So at that point, if nothing was done, the next year it could be, this is the crossing of choice. The stakes are still small enough that they will be destroyed as well. So that's why the DNR has said in the past that they rope off an area, there's still an access. But if you don't allow the vegetation to grow in situations like that, nothing's gonna change.
So the idea is that we would leave an access opening there so that they could access the lake, but also have the area blocked off so that the stakes could have a chance to grow and establish themselves. As
And that with the riprap, that's the obvious choice because it's a gentle slope. You're not going to destroy shoreline. That should be the access. Let the other vegetation grow and then decide what you do with the opening that's left for the riprap area and restore the shoreline that's eroding away.
Do we need a motion?
Well, I guess I'm more of a visual person. I'm trying to imagine that whole stretch of Shoreview. Are we talking about roping off the entire Shoreview with the exception of a small access?
You would have to, I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't let that vegetation grow, the only way you can do it, and if you go down there, there's a huge spot that's probably 20 feet with virtually no vegetation. To get the rest of it to grow and take root, you block that off, still having the access so that it can grow. Now, the DNR may ask the city to restake some of those other areas that also were used for access, because it's multiple points instead of one. It's just whatever somebody chose to use.
It may be a good idea. I'm just having a hard time visualizing it. And if we could ask staff to like show us like on a map next meeting of where we're talking about. My first question is, when we talk about roping off a section, isn't there standards of what kind of fencing, or, you know, if a car were to go off, you know, what does it hit? You know, there's guide rails, you know, on the highways. What can we put to prevent, you know, and lessen the impact if a car went off the road? Who's liable at that point? There's some
What the
considerations.
DNR stated was rope.
Yeah, I would think you wouldn't put anything like.
You don't
like
put
a car-
any, you're
Somebody
not
could go off
putting-
there if they really wanted to.
Opening off an area is what we're looking at. So basically, you'd probably put up a set of stakes and you'd have rope that runs from one part to the next part and leaving one opening area in that riprap where people would have access to the lake. The rest of it would be roped off during the growing season to allow the stakes to kind of take root and grow up. So there's other areas along them besides the riprap area right now that have been, the vegetation growth has been defeated because people drove across there all last winter accessing it on the lake. So that's kind of where Councilmember Jensen is saying if we could do something along those lines, we might give that growth an opportunity to take root, get established, and then be able to take. So the roping is not a permanent thing. It's a temporary thing to allow that planting to establish itself, to take root, so that it's got some growth in it, so that people don't run it over and flatten it out again. No, so that's where we're at. But I mean, it's up to the council what they want to do. I mean, you know, with their idea about what they think is the right move in the right direction, we just need to direct staff of what you think we should do or not do. So you know, from my perspective, vegetation along there is a benefit. Okay, it's going to help cut down the erosion, which you have a lot of there because of just the whole fact that road is where it is and it's so narrow, and the wave actions, whatever, ice action. We can't stop the access because they're allowed to have access there, but we're trying to do something temporarily to help promote the growth, which will then establish it. How big are the stakes, Joe? How tall are the stakes, Joe, when you put them in?
They vary.
Okay.
I mean, the ones we saw were maybe a foot,
Yeah.
but you could get bigger stakes.
Right. No, I'm asking from that question just as far as in my mind thinking growth and what they're going to get in a season and what they're going to look like at the end of that season when you open things up. So that's the only reason I asked. So again, there's options before the council. Councilmember Jensen has recommended an option. Is that the option that the council wants to have staff move forward with? Or do we need to come back and talk about it some more at the next meeting?
I think it makes sense to move forward. It's the cheapest option. It helps maintain the riprap, which if we don't maintain it, it's going to cost us more in the future. So
Okay. All right.
I think it makes sense to move forward. It's a temporary solution. People don't have to abide by it. I mean, if it's a roped off, they could still go through it.
Well, and
So-
hence, that's why the DNR said they place signs.
Yeah,
Just,
exactly.
and people understand, okay, it's part of a restoration.
Yeah.
All right. I don't think we need to have a motion per se. I think we can direct staff to go ahead and move forward with option one if everybody's comfortable with that.
And so the plan is that city staff does the work itself as far as the cost standpoint, or are we hiring that out, or?
I think we could do the work. Based on the time frame projections and what they gave us, I mean, less than half a day. We could fit it in, sometime before August, I would expect. I'd have to dig into it, see how available the
Stakes are.
stakes are mostly. The other items on there are, I could get them tomorrow, pretty much.
If it's any help, Gertens were where the original ones came from, which surprised me.
Any other comments? All right, so staff, you have some direction. Option one,
Okay, no problem.
I'd like to have an update on that at the next meeting as to where we're at and how it's going.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. Item 13, City Hall high-tech payment, 13A, City Hall renovation high-tech pay application number 9. Any comments around that from staff? None?
This is pay application number 9 for $470,174.28. Just an update.
Yes.
We had originally intended to be moving this week. That has since been pushed back by some equipment that hasn't come yet. Most of the furniture has been installed, the carpeting's down, the lights all work, and it's ready for most of the move. We really didn't want to move in without everything being done,
Makes sense.
so we're waiting for some toilet accessories. We're waiting for the protective glass on the counter. There's a few punch list items that have to happen. It looks like the glass will be coming sometime next week. So we're projecting that we're going to be moving the week of the 20th.
Okay.
It's really, it's got to the point where it's really looking like it's an office, and I think you're going to be very proud to see what it is.
Yep.
I suggest anybody that's got time, stop in, and we'll certainly take anybody through it. And with the members of the audience also, we're happy to show it off, quite frankly.
Yeah, which I'm sure we'll have something official when the time comes.
I
Have
do.
everybody come and view it from the public, so we'll plan on doing that as well. But yes, I agree, if somebody wants to go check it out ahead of time, stop by.
I think it would be helpful for us if you had some ideas of what you want to do for, say, a ribbon cutting or something like that. If you have some ideas, it would be helpful for the staff to know
Okay.
what those are.
Sure. Great, I've got some. I'll pass them along. When do we think the council chambers will be ready?
I think that's probably October.
October now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to be conservative about that.
Yep, right, oh, it's understand. Yeah, okay, good. Well, I'll follow up with Administrator Polfus and we can discuss some things too. But yeah, everybody else, you got any ideas, share them with her. Because I definitely want to make sure we do something, so that's the plan. All right, so thank you for the update, appreciate that. So we have in front of us high-tech payment application number 9. Do I have a motion from the council to approve it?
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilmember Ball. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Maroney. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? The motion carries. All right, item 14 on the agenda, Shoreview Lane Repair, Gladden Construction Final Payment A. Shoreview Lane Ice Damage Repair Final Payment.
That's final payment of $17,764.
Okay, so that finishes out what we were just talking about.
Yeah, we're just rehashing the number 12. Wait a second, Nick.
Yes, Nick, go ahead.
You want me to stand?
Yes, please. Use the mic.
I just, Just one comment on that. I think we missed a couple months back on these pay apps, and I did send over the final pay app. I believe the one that's in this packet is pay app 2. So this would have been one that we wanted to have in the packet last month.
Okay,
The final pay app was roughly $6,000, I want to say, to release the retainage that we held from the contractor.
okay,
It's in the city's hands right now,
okay.
so,
So in other words, what you're saying is we have one more payment after this that we'll have to take care of?
yeah.
Okay,
I just wanted that to be clear because this pay app says pay app number 2, but the agenda item said final pay app. So,
okay. All right. Thank you, Nick.
yep.
So basically, we'll have one more small one coming, it sounds like, at the end for about 6,000 or something. We'll have that on the next one. Okay, so we have the Shoreview Lane repair for the amount that's listed as payment number 2, it sounds like, for this damage repair. Do I have a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion from Councilmember Scott. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilmember Jensen. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Number 15, city updates. Butterfly release July 19th at 11 a.m. and 15A department information.
I have one thing. There's an organization out here called the Government Finance Officers Association, and that's a professional organization for finance officers in the U.S. and Canada. The finance officers has a certification program and a scholarship program, and I'm proud to say that Jeanette Rust has received a scholarship to participate in that program. I'm also proud to say that I worked with Jeanette Rust.
Yes. Excellent. Congratulations, Jeanette. Very proud of that. That's awesome. And by the way, I did a little background on that. There's only 2 of those scholarships given out in the state, and she got one of them. So congrats.
Yes.
We appreciate that work and effort on your part to go ahead and do that. So outstanding. Thank you. You're welcome. This thing, I'll be happy we don't anymore. Anyway, all right. So let's talk butterfly release a little bit. July 19th, 11 a.m. Okay, I think the deadline, get the days right. I think the deadline for getting in the sheet was today. Okay, but they're going to have up to 300. Is that right, butterflies? Yep, so there'll be butterflies available for you if you're coming to the butterfly release. We encourage all of you to come and attend. My wife and I will be there attending. I know Councilmember Jensen will be there. I know he attends as well. The cemetery committee works really hard every year to make that place look beautiful, and they'll be there in attendance as well. So we're looking forward to that. Hopefully the weather cooperates. But I encourage everybody to come out, attend. It's a great time. It's a great event. It's a really neat thing to do. And so if you have somebody that you want to remember or do an honor of, you can get a butterfly and release it. It's an amazing thing to watch all the butterflies released and fly up into the air. And that's a pretty neat thing. And you're doing a great thing for pollinating plants, wild things. Monarch butterflies are huge pollinators. So again, I encourage everybody, if you can make it, please come out. If you need more information, check the city's website or call down to the city offices, and Deb and others will be able to give you the information you need if you're looking for some stuff like that. So definitely encourage everybody to come out for that on the 19th at 11. So any other department information at this time? No? All right. All right. So hearing none, I move to item 16, which is I'm now going to suspend this regular session. And I will move to